Welcome to DU Digimon.
Hello and welcome to DU Digimon. BT21 has not long been out and I'm here already thinking about BT22. I am super excited for BT22. I completed Cyber Sleuth not that long ago and I promise I will give this back to you at some point, Sam. Maybe when I've completed Hacker's Memory, teehee. And I loved it. The game can be a little grindy, but the gameplay was great, and though a lot of Eden looks the same, I loved seeing so many different Digimon and seeing what Digimon I could climb up into. Now, we have been given some idea of what will be in BT22 based on the images and official promotion from Bandai, as well as the very recent reveals. But in this video, we're going to try to use what we know directly from Bandai's current information and source ideas straight from the source to theorise what specific decks will be getting some support, and there may be a few custom card ideas along the way. Strap in, it's time to dive headfirst into Eden and discuss 10 decks that will get support in BT22. Oh, and spoilers ahead if you've not played Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. Now, this isn't exactly a ranked list. These ideas are not in order of what we think is more likely, especially as we have the recent leaks to go off of. Which, on that note, those reveals came at a really annoying time as I had to adjust this entire script that was practically completed beforehand. Like and subscribe and ding that notification bell. Show me some love. Thank you. These decks are just the 10 decks that we as a team want to see get some love in the set. To somewhat set the stage, let's also talk about what we know so far about BT22. We know that the set will mainly centre around Cyber Sleuth, Appmon, and Digimon Liberator. We also know that the set will include a new effect called Team Up, and there's a strong chance that a lot of the Digimon in the set will have this effect. The effect itself seems to be a reference to the 3-on-3 battles in Cyber Sleuth, as well as the cross-combo attacks that you can perform in the game. Notably, none of the revealed cards have this new keyword. There is also a Cyber Sleuth, or CS for short, trait, confirming that you will be able to use any of the Digimon with this trait in the same deck, just as we've seen with the Adventure and Hero decks previously. Also, based on some product information, it seems we'll also be able to emulate the way in which Digivolution worked in Cyber Sleuth. You see, in Cyber Sleuth, you had a specific stat called ABI. On the surface, ABI didn't seem like a particularly important stat, however, having a higher ABI would mean that you could unlock some very powerful Digimon so long as you also met their other stat requirements. And it looks like we'll be able to emulate this by digivolving, de-digivolving and re-digivolving our Digimon until we get to our boss monster, akin to something like Galaxy. So it's safe to say we're going to get quite an intricate Cyber Sleuth only deck that can utilise any of the CS trait Digimon, which makes sense. As the main character, you could basically have any Digimon you wanted. So for more specific decks, we need to turn to our supporting characters. We're also going to look directly at the revealed cards. However, we will be doing this as we go along throughout the decks. The first character I'd like to look at is Yuko, who had two partners in the game. Machinedramon, which she inherited from her brother while she impersonated him, and Greymon, who later became her partner when she accepted that she needed to carry on as herself if she truly wanted to help her brother. Because of this, both Machine decks and Dragonkin/Greymon decks will be getting some form of support. This is directly supported by both the new Rise Greymon and Diaboromon. Both of these cards could potentially help Machinedramon, whilst the Rise Greymon will potentially assist all forms of Greymon. Let's first look at Diaboromon, a black-yellow level 4 with an on-play when digivolving effect to give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 3000 DP. It then, if it has two Digimon of the same level in its stack, and we'll get to that later in the video, will de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon. It also has an inherited effect to give 2000 DP to your Digimon on the opponent's turn, potentially making Machinedramon, anything in the CS deck, or, dare I say, Jumbo Gamemon, a very, very big blocker. Rise Greymon detracts from the usual yellow and opts for a red-black colour instead. It has Raid and a when digivolving effect that allows you to play any red or black tamer with a play cost of 4 or less, or one CS trait tamer, so long as you have one or few tamers on the board. Though it is unfortunate that it can only play a tamer if you have one or fewer, seeming that similar cards like BT12 Metal Greymon do not have such a limit, the fact that it just does it as a when digivolving instead of requiring any further action is very nice. Though it is a shame that this when digivolving effect is not also an on-play. The new EX9 Machinedramon will not be able to take advantage of this effect. But Greymon decks will be loving this card, especially with the inheritable of Security Attack +1. Now going on to some custom ideas, you could have a Yuko Tamer card that supports Cyber Sleuth, Machine, and Dragonkin Digimon in some way. She could gain you a memory if the opponent has a Digimon in play, which Bandai seems to be doing a lot recently, and then could have a similar end of turn effect as Owen does from BT21. giving raid to a Digimon with the aforementioned traits and then allowing that Digimon to attack. Reason why I would personally like to see this is because the one thing the new promo Greymon could use is access to raid, allowing it to not only trash security on the opponent's turn when blocking, but also on your turn by using raid. However, given the Rise Greymon already has raid, it's possible a new Greymon will also have raid, so it may be a case of relying on other cards to give raid to the promo, and might be less likely that the Yuko gives raid to your Digimon. Greymon will also get more support from Nokia, who will also be giving some support to Garurumon, as both Ogumon and Gabumon were her Digimon partners. We've already seen a new Ogumon that is near identical to the BT17 Ogumon, except for the fact that the start of main effect has become a non-play. We'll definitely get a new Gabumon to go along with this, and my hope is that this will give us some form of a searcher. Perhaps searching one Digimon with Garurumon in its text or the CS trait, and one blue tamer or a tamer with the CS trait. Give something like that the end of turn DNA inheritable, and we'll be laughing. I also think we'll be getting a new Omnimon, and this card will most likely be one of the set's secret rares. As to what it would do, I'm not too sure. Omnimon cards as of late have had a bit of a niche for having some sort of board clearing effect. BT17 bottom decks Digimon based on their level and then deletes a Digimon, and BT20 Omnimon X deletes everything bar one Digimon and then bottom decks something. Both of these aforementioned Digimon have also had raid and blocker, so it could be a case that our new Omnimon may also have these keywords. But, seeming we are getting the new team-up keyword, I think it could also have this one. Maybe instead of clearing boards, it plays out Digimon from your hand or trash, and if you DNA Digivolve into it, you play out 2 Digimon with this effect. Then you bottom deck one of your opponent's Digimon for each Digimon played by this effect, giving you a way of building up your own board whilst also clearing some of your opponents. DNA Digivolving and playing out 2 Digimon would also give you 3 Digimon, just like in the battles you see in Cyber Sleuth. Now obviously, we don't know what the team-up effect does right now, but it definitely feels like it will have something to do with using the different Digimon you have on field, perhaps to boost your DP or to grant some form of protection based on how many Digimon you have on board. But until we've seen what the new keyword does, we can't say for certain how it will work. We do, however, feel confident that a new Omnimon will have the team-up keyword. You could maybe give it Raid or Piercing as well to match Omnimon X, or you could give it Alliance to coincide with the team-up and the effect to play stuff out. Also, I know this is mainly the O2 Kids and Chaosmon's trick, but Partition would be peak on an Omnimon. It's also safe to say that we'll be getting a new Nokia, seeming she is on the box art. As to what she will do, hard to say. Nokia's last appearance, way back in BT5, simply allowed you to play out an Ogumon or Gabumon and reduce the cost of your Digivolutions of Greymon or Garurumon Digimon. So perhaps a new Nokia would give you a start of main to gain 1 or just set you to 3. Then to assist you with your consistency, when you play out or Digivolve into a Digimon with Greymon or Garurumon in its text, gain 1 memory and draw 1 card. Simple, but effective. Moving on to Arata Sanada, there are 2 potential decks that he will help support, Diaboromon and the Eaters. Arata's Digimon partner in Cyber Sleuth ultimately became Diaboromon, but before it did, he deviated from having a Digimon partner and instead absorbed the power of the Eaters. He even became so strong thanks to the Eaters that he massively injured Gallantmon. No small feat, given that the Royal Knights play such pivotal roles in the game. The Eaters are looking to show themselves as the next play more than 4 copies deck, which annoyingly I had scripted as being a possibility and then had to adjust this entire section once we got the reveals. But at least I was right on the money. The Eater cards themselves are fairly interesting as well. The Eater Species Form card has an on-play to draw 1 and has blocker, and given you can play up to 50 copies of it, that's a lot of blockers! It also has an inheritable to reduce the play cost of any Eater trait card by 1. Then there's the Eater Human Form. This one lets you place 1 Eater Species Form under your Mother Eater in the breeding area. Uh-oh, this is going to be a deck that's a mix of D-Reaper and Royal Knights? Grim. The Human Form also allows you to play 1 CS trait Tamer when it checks your opponent's security, which works quite well with what we think a new Arata can do. Going back to the fact that Arata managed to damage Gallantmon in the game, we think that a new Arata may be able to do a Marcus and become a Digimon. Perhaps having a start of main effect to become a Digimon until the end of your opponent's turn, but only if he has at least 1 Eater trait card beneath him. He could become a Digimon with, let's say, 3000 DP, but you increase the threshold by 2000 for every 2 Eater trait cards under him. He'd then be an additional way to stack your play cost reductions in addition to the Mother Eater. As for how he gets the Eater trait cards underneath him, he could have a once per turn all turn effect that reads, when an Eater trait card would leave the field, you may place it underneath this Tamer instead. However, he does really need to help Diaboromon in some way, So to that end, he could also have effects that center around Digimon with the same trait or the same name. He could then have the generic start of main, game 1, or start of turn set to 3 effect, but could then, to again reference the fact he damaged Gallantmon, have a once per turn all turns effect that reads, when you play a Digimon with a CS, Eta, or unidentified trait, activate the effect below. For each Digimon with a CS, Eta, or unidentified trait in play, activate it again. One of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP. I think this could be a really interesting removal tool that takes direct inspiration from Heaven's Judgment. I possibly thought about increasing the minus to 2k, but figured this might get out of hand given how wide you might be able to go. As for Diaboromon, the last wave of Diaboromon support back in EX6 and BT17 focused on token generation and granting additional effects, and I definitely think that we will see more of this. We could see a new Diaboromon that, at the start of main and when digivolving, creates a token. It could then have a your turn effect to de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon by 1 for each of your Digimon with Diaboromon its name in play. You could also give it the team up keyword, or, as we still don't know what team up will do, what if it had alliance? Generating a token to give you a target for alliance and doing 2 checks. Those 2 checks could have jamming thanks to the EX6 Diaboromon, and the new Kurisarimon could allow you to delete the token to survive in the event you hit an option or hit something bigger than the Diaboromon. The new Kurisari also helps to play out Aratas, which is very nice. Next, we of course need to talk about some more Royal Knights, and the 2 I'd like to talk about are Alphamon and Lord Knightmon. These 2 Digimon take over the bodies of human characters in the game. Lord Knight inhabits the body of Kamishiro CEO Rie Kishibe, and Alphamon inhabits the body of Kyoko Kuremi. Because of this, I would personally love it if these tamers could essentially digivolve into Lord Knight and Alphamon under certain conditions, perhaps placing sources underneath them at the start of main, as well as through other bits of support like your other Digimon and options. Then, if either tamer has 5 cards underneath them, they could use a main effect to digivolve into Lord Knight or Alphamon without paying cost and ignoring Digivolution requirements. Or, instead of digivolving, you could play out your respective Royal Knight and place the cards underneath the tamer under the Digimon played out by this effect. Then you could bottom deck the tamer or delete them. As for what Alphamon and Lord Knight do, I think both would need quite big effects to make the wait worth it. Perhaps some form of protection effect, or big board clearance in the case of Alphamon. Then Lord Knight could focus more on playing out other bodies and giving them rush, setting up your later Digivolution into Lord Knight X. Whilst on the subject of the Royal Knights, I wanted to discuss the elephant in the room, which of course is the big bad meta threat that is the Royal Knights deck. Though I think the Royal Knights in BT22 will be usable in the Royal Knights deck, I'm actually of the opinion that Bandai will be focusing just as much, if not more, on what they will do in their individual decks due to how strong Royal Knights is right now. I could be wrong, but making Royal Knights even stronger than it currently is definitely not on my wish list. But that's just my opinion. Continuing with the Royal Knights, I next wanted to discuss Ulforce Veedramon and Kentorusmon. In regards to the story, these 2 are all about speed. We essentially go on a questline with Vmon and Reno Shinomiya to find and defeat Barbamon and retrieve Vmon's, or VV's, stolen power. Once Barbamon is defeated, VV then warp digivolves into Ulforce Veedramon, who then assists the player with intercepting and defeating the otherwise impossible to catch Kentorusmon. As both of these Digimon have an emphasis on speed, we wanted to give them effects that reflect this. We of course have seen a new Veedramon, which lets us play out a tamer with Veedramon in its text if we have 1 or fewer tamers in play. But its inheritable is the spicy part, allowing you to prevent your Digimon from leaving the battle area via an opponent's effect by suspending itself. Evade, unsuspend, then this on top? That's a well-protected boss monster for sure. Originally I thought we should also get a new Vmon that can warp in order to reference the fact that VV warped into Ulforce in the game. However, this new Veedramon does seem to support traditional stack building, though saying that, having level 4s to go up into hasn't exactly stopped our past warping rookies. If they do go with a warping Vmon, we would need a special condition to achieve this. Our previous Rena from BT11 had the ability to suspend herself when a Digimon with Veedramon in its name became suspended to then activate its when digivolving effect. Perhaps the Vmon's warp condition could be triggered when a Reno Shinomiya becomes suspended by her own effect, and to reference the fact that Vmon warped after Barbamon was defeated, the warp could also trigger when a level 6 Digimon leaves the battle area. In either case, the warp would need to be for a cost, most likely a cost of 4 if we use previous warping rookies as a reference, as warping for free off a rookie would be kind of gross. If we go with the first idea, a new Rena would definitely need to have a self-suspending effect. As both the BT2 and BT11 Renas did not act as memory tamers, the new one could set us to 3. Then, her Your Turn effect could suspend herself to give jamming to one of your Digimon when a Digimon with Vmon or Veedramon is played or digivolves. The warp of the Vmon could then trigger to go up into Ulforce as the Rena has become suspended. The Old Force could then have a when digivolving an on-play effect to stop one of your opponent's Digimon from suspending for each of your tamers in play, just so it could see use outside of its own deck. Then this Digimon may attack. It could also have the rush keyword so that it can attack the turn it is played, referencing its awesome speed. Kentaurus, I think, also needs to have some sort of rush component to reference its incredible speed. Previous Kentaurus cards have focused on suspending, giving DP minus effects, and around the idea of there being 6 or fewer security between yourself and the opponent. Taking a bit of inspiration from the Kentaurus adjacent Mitamamon from EX5, perhaps Kentaurusmon's on-play and when digivolving effect could be to play out a level 4 or lower Digimon. But if there are 6 or fewer security on the board, we could instead play out a level 5 or lower Digimon. Then you could minus the DP of one of your opponent's Digimon by 7,000, referencing the previous BT13 Kentaurusmon, or by the amount of the Digimon played by the previous effect, which could either be worse or way better depending on what you play out. But where's the rush? Well, you could give Kentaurus a similar effect to Omnimon X, giving rush to one of your Digimon at the end of the turn. However, unlike Omnimon X, who could do it with no repercussions, Kentaurusmon would have to trash a security in order to achieve the same effect, which not only gives a cost to the effect, but also does synergize with previous Kentaurus and Kentaurus adjacent cards. It would be fantastic to see Kentaurus get some love in addition to the Old Force, seeming that neither of them have received any new support since BT13 and EX5 respectively. Then, for our last segment, I wanted to deviate a bit and talk about the remaining revealed cards. The Gargomon to me is the least interesting, so let's start there. All he does is let you play out a CS trait Tamer, if you have 1 or fewer Tamers. He then has an all-turns inheritable that gives this Digimon 1000 DP. Safe to say, along with all the other cards we've discussed today from the reveals, we are definitely getting a CS trait deck, and this card will only help that deck. The Meramon is very interesting to me as someone who has played around with the BT15 Skull Meramon. It's red-purple and can digivolve off a Flame trait or CS trait Digimon card for a cost of 2, otherwise costs 3 off of a red or purple Digimon. It has a main effect that is very reminiscent of the BT15 Skull Meramon, which is to give itself raid and piercing for a cost of 2, and then it may attack. This, coupled with the BT15 Skull Mero's ability to give itself Sec +1 and then attack, could make for some interesting jank, especially as we have a 2k DP inheritable. But the most interesting of our remaining cards is Togemon, who along with the Guardramon we discussed earlier, directly confirms the CS trait's trick when it comes to digivolving. On play when digivolving, one of your Digimon gains 3k DP. Then, if this Digimon's stack has 2 or more same level cards, this Digimon gains raid and piercing for the turn. This seems to confirm that we will have some sort of Galaxy-esque mechanic to place our top Digimon card into our sources to then digivolve up into a different level 4. This same level effect can also be achieved in plants. With a BT14 Palmon and a BT15 Palmon X in your stack, you'd have the 2 same level cards needed to gain raid and piercing. And, so long as you have a green Tamer, the 3 cost would be mitigated by the cost reduction of the Palmon. Digivolve up, gaining a further 2k increase from the inheritable, and you could end up with a raiding, piercing Bloom Lord that will hit like a truck. That is kind of spooky. And that's it for this one. Sorry if this turned out to be quite a long-winded video, but we had so many different ideas that we then had to adjust and add to when the reveals came out. If only we'd gotten this out sooner. Anyways, like and subscribe and ding that notification bell, and we will see you on the next video. But until then, keep it digital.